Excellent. So here we are on a brand new series, Shelter in Love. As you all know, we had a fantastic series for 15 days called Living Well. And at the end of the series, you guys were like, okay, we can't stop here. We are not done yet. We need this every day. And I said, I'm going to come back to you. And so the inspirations I received during these 4 days or 5 days I've been off is to not just be the focus of this conversation. And the intention is really not to get you hooked onto one other thing. Yesterday you were busy with doing or shopping or whatever else you were doing. And today I just don't want to replace that. So I thought, why not bring in some fabulous friends that I have from around the world and have them share their wisdom. And we have a little conversation, kind of a living room conversation right here. And so we call it Shelter in Love. And here we are, first episode of Shelter in Love. I have my good friend, Ash Patel. And Ash is a friend. Hey, Ash.
Hi, hi, everyone.
So good morning. Yeah. So I know it's different times. I know there's people it's night for you. There's people from all over the world. I've already started seeing that are joining in. So welcome wherever you're from. I just want to tell you all real quick. So how I know Ash and why I chose him to be my first guest on this amazing series we're going to be doing. Ash and I go way back. We have several things in common. Ash and I are deeply invested in our personal spiritual growth. That's, I think, sits at the center. It's fundamental to our being. And you will see it in the course of the conversation. The second thing is we both ride motorcycles. We work a lot with young people. Ash and I both independently have been doing work with youth and children. And then the other thing that we find ourselves getting into a lot of conversations is Ash and I are both kite surfers. Now, so real quick, we're going to show you what kite surfing is. So for those of you who have no idea, so what you're seeing on my screen right now is what kite surfing is, right? So it's a really liberating, it's so eco-friendly, so portable sport. I've been sailing since I was a child, but in the last year, I've been practicing kite surfing, and Ash has been my mentor in that space. So he's been doing it for a whole lot longer than I have. So with that, I'd like to welcome Ash to this conversation. And so first question for you is, tell us what is going on. So Ash lives in the UK. Tell us where you are. Tell us, what do you see politically from a social perspective? What's going on in your country?
Sure. Firstly, I just wanted to say Om Shanti to everyone, which is just a greeting of peace. And secondly, I just wanted to say thank you, Jay, for having me on, because I really looked forward to our conversation that we had and the subsequent conversations we've had related to this event. So it's really nice to be part of this conversation. I guess in terms of the current crisis, it's such an interesting period. Not just in the lives of those living in the UK, but everywhere across the world. There's so many changes that people are experiencing in their lives at the moment. I suppose at one level, we're not necessarily in the same lockdown state as other countries are, and there is some freedom to be able to exercise, to be able to go grocery shopping and things like that. So that's really helped us as a nation. I feel everyone has really come together and really respected those rules, and the vast majority are following them. So there is this social distancing in place. People are only going out if and when they really need to. It's the timing of this coronavirus event has really just come at a time when the nation has just been recovering from, kind of the effects of the financial meltdown in 2008. We've had several years, more than a decade of austerity, where there's been significant budget cuts, and basically most of our public services have been on their knees, and literally 2 weeks before the whole crisis kicked off, um, the Conservative Party, the leading party in the UK, or the ruling party in the UK, their Chancellor announced one of the biggest budget spends ever that's ever been witnessed. And it was prolific in terms of the investment across all of our public sector organizations, education, policing, healthcare. So infrastructure, there were large injections into all of those areas that were really necessary. And clearly, a week later, so it was such an interesting scene when he stood up and had his chest out and he shared with a lot of pride, this is what we're going to do. All of a sudden, a week later, to have all of the attention then to be directed towards coronavirus and supporting us economically to recover makes me feel as though we've kind of come back to those times when this is a crisis, not just from a health perspective, but also economically. So it has really affected so many people, businesses, big businesses folding, small businesses folding, but the government seem to be doing everything they can at this stage to be able to help them at a financial level. So I think we're still seeing disruption just in certainly in the small business space where there is still uncertainty about how to get access to this government funds and how to stabilize their businesses. But there's also been so many positives that are beginning to emerge and have been actually for a little while now. So yeah, just a quick response to what is a conversation in itself.
Right. Yeah. So tell me, this is great. I mean, this is a very interesting thing. As you've said, there are so many things positive. So tell me from your personal perspective, what are some realizations that you're having around the lessons that one is learning or one has to learn? Just, yeah, share something about what do you see
Sure,
underneath the surface of the news and all the what, we all have exposure to the media, but
of
what's
course.
really happening underneath the surface?
I think I think this period is drawing attention. This is a perspective. This period is definitely drawing attention um, in a number of different ways. So I think one of the first things, or the first realizations and reminders that people are having are that situations do not go according to plan. And when things don't go according to plan, there is a huge amount of uncertainty and a huge amount of fear that goes with that. And my preparation to be able to face and deal with uncertainty is absolutely critical in times like this. So I think that's a first and a very powerful lesson that we're all learning collectively, not just in the UK, but globally. I think the second is how we can really become more simple in our way of life and really just to focus on what is very important. I think for a lot of us, there's been so many changes in our routine. We may have time on our hands, time to be able to really invest in our relationships, invest in my relationship with myself. So I feel this time is kind of calling up on us to really revisit our lifestyle in many regards, where we don't necessarily need to spend when we don't need to. We can eat and live in a very basic and simple way and still really appreciate the value of what we have and the value of life. And I also feel this is calling on us to share the power of giving and the spirit of giving, because we're so used to consuming, and that habit and that mentality of consuming and taking has just been so deeply ingrained, whereas this time is really desperately calling on all of us to be able to give in one way or the other. And I don't necessarily just mean giving in a physical way, but actually really emerging feelings of kindness and thoughts of kindness for those who live around me, for those that are suffering, for my community, for people in different parts of the world, that haven't got what I have. So I feel that's a big lesson. And I feel the third and really the biggest lesson is that this whole event or this whole period is showing us how we need to actually pay attention to ourselves and really pay attention to my thoughts and my feelings. So it's not just taking care of myself physically. Yes, we have conditions that have been set out in terms of how we wash our hands, how we maintain social distancing, how we need to be able to cover our faces, all of that kind of stuff. But actually, at a deeper level, when uncertainty and change comes into our life, we actually experience fear, doubt, worry, and we're actually feeding our mind with a lot of negative stories and news of all of these different things, and that only increases fear inside of me as well. So I think it's showing us that we have to pay such a great deal of attention to what's happening inside as a response to what I'm seeing changing in the world around me. Does that cover comprehensively the kind of
It not only covers comprehensively, it's a very important thing that I think, the importance of paying attention to the world that is inside of us. It's really, as we all know this, the world outside is only a reflection of what's happening inside. And so maybe the housekeeping that we are doing right now, we need to do right now, is paramount and in anything that we want to see out there in the world. So one thing I want to ask you before we lead into the meditation,
Sure.
there's lots of great positive stories. Different communities have different things, and some of them get onto the mainstream media, and we get to hear them. We get publicized, put on social media, etc. Tell me something that you're seeing particularly happening in your community, whether it's in the UK, whether it's in your part of the UK, or even in your town, your street, what have you. Share us one thing that is really beautiful in the midst of these so-called crises.
Yeah, sure. Um, I also, before I started sharing that, I'd love to actually hear from you just in terms of the same thing, what's happening in your area. And I think users and participants on this side would really be interested in how people are dealing with this in other parts of the world. So I think for me, just seeing subtle and appreciating the subtlety of positivity, and that's I'm beginning to see that all around me, not just in my own neighborhood, in my own block of flats that I live in, and how we're interacting with each other. There's a lot more closeness just in terms of the formation and supporting each other as a small community. I mean, I go for a walk every day, and 2 days ago I went for a walk, and there's a lovely booth just that's on the seafront, and that you can sit down on. There's a number of benches in there, and there's a couple of booths that were covered in rocks that were shaped of hearts, and it was just a lovely symbol. And there were some lovely slogans on these rocks, just reminding us that there is love, care, and attention. And just seeing that alone was really uplifting, let alone people just taking their turn to sit in one of these booths and spend a bit of time in them. The other thing I saw was something that's happening a lot in Italy, where there's a full lockdown, where people are playing musical instruments. And there was a block that I walked past, and there was a young lady there, and every day I walked past at the same sort of time, and she's always there playing her piano, playing her violin, and that was again a really nice feeling. It creates such a wonderful feeling of community just when people kind of give something of themselves in some way. In times like this, when people are feeling alone, when people are feeling like they need some level of engagement. And the third thing I saw, and this wasn't too far down the road, was there were some benches, and literally every day, someone, I don't know who this person is, but they place these wonderfully crafted, decorated pebbles with beautiful slogans on them. And they place them, so they're very colorful. You walk past them, you can really be drawn to them very easily. And I literally turned a couple of them around, and one of them said, "Find your purpose in this time." Really powerful message of how we can use our time. And the second one, had such an uplifting slogan. It said, "Stay balanced." So it says, "Never give up. Don't give up. Stay balanced and keep smiling." And I felt, there are many souls out there that will be experiencing disheartenment, that will be experiencing loneliness, and actually seeing messages like this just randomly can turn what is a normal walk into something very special. So I feel these are just subtle signs of what's happening in our community, where positivity is visible and people are engaging also. Whilst there's social distancing taking place, people want to engage, people want to acknowledge you as you walk past them. So I feel there is genuineness in connection at the moment at a positive level. And I feel that's really infecting us in a very nice way. Equally, there's a lot of information out there that's stimulating negative thoughts and feelings as well. So my sense is we've really got to turn that tap off on these sources of negative information and really just pay attention to cultivating and nourishing these positive thoughts and feelings, and to listen to and share stories and watch, as much about upliftment as we can. So one recommendation I've got, if you're looking for something different and interesting to watch, and some of you may have already watched it, it's a story about a children's television host in the US, Fred Rogers, and the movie was A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. If you really want your heart touched in these times, watch that and melt. So yeah, I just thought I'd let you know that.
Fabulous. So you asked me, you said you asked me to share what's going on in my neck of the woods. And that's different. First of all, I just want to say that what you're seeing right here, this community, all of this came together. We just finished, like I said, a 15-day episode, 15-day series on really using this time to work on waking up. So this has been incredible. I'm just the responses, the community, and how this whole virtual, I call it Zoom land, right? We're all now on Zoom land, and we feel like we're literally living in each other's living room, having a real conversation. I mean, and I've had many people text me and message me after this conversation, after these live shows, and tell me, Jay, I didn't feel like you're sitting somewhere else on the other side of a screen, but it felt like you were right here having this conversation, and we really feel this an intimacy to this. So
Definitely.
So my work and my relationships have kind of lifted into the virtual world. So that's the first thing I want to say, which has been a deeply rewarding experience. And I can see, now here's the thing. One of the things that I always look at and say, how is the world going to be different when this lockdown is lifted, right? That's the big thing. And I can see that this virtual network, this way of communicating, way of interacting with each other is something that's here to stay, both from in this particular case, is from a community support perspective, but I can also see from a business perspective, from relationships. We probably need to get less on planes and burn up the ozone layer and put all that fumes out and carbon dioxide and everything. And so I can see how this is going to be a real sustainable way for us to feel a sense of connection and community. So that's one thing. And very much aligned with what you said about now I'm going for a whole lot more walks in my neighborhood than I used to. And so are my neighbors. So guess what? We are seeing each other. I mean, I've been living here in Sausalito for about a year and a half. I've met some neighbors I've never seen. And now not only have I met them, but I'm seeing them on a regular cadence. Yeah. So what's happening is we're actually beginning to create a friendship. We're actually getting to know each other and have conversations, 6 feet apart. But nevertheless, we're still having conversation. Right now we have these masks in place that we're wearing. So it's a different kind of an identity that as we go out and see ourselves. But it's just been a very deeply connecting. It's a way for bringing us together, kind of an experience. So there's a lot of positivity there. So with that, Ash, I'm going to request you to please lead us through a meditation, and go ahead and take your time and do the meditation, and just let us know maybe with your Om Shanti when you're done. And so then I'll open up the microphone, and then we'll ask people to bring in their questions that they want to ask you.
Excellent. Okay. So I'm sat in the sun, as you can tell. I can't seem to maneuver my way out of the sun, but I'm happy and comfortable. So, let us find a space wherever you are, and where you're sat completely comfortably. So, place both your feet on the floor in front of you, and just relax into your seats completely. Yeah. And let us start with inner connection first. Yeah. So just sit. You may wish to keep your eyes gently open and rested at a point in front of you. Or if you feel it's easier, then just close your eyes. But just let me turn my attention to my breath. And just take one deep breath in. And just release slowly. And now just breathe normally. And with each breath that you take, just begin to feel the mind loosen. Each in-breath floods the mind with fresh oxygen. And each out-breath releases any thoughts of tension in the mind and across the body. And just settle into this breathing pattern where the in-breath clears the mind and the out-breath releases any tension. I breathe in clarity and I breathe out tension. And now just turn your awareness to the center of your forehead, at a point between your eyes. And just see yourself in a little room behind the eyes. And in this room, you see a screen. And this is the screen of your mind. If there are any thoughts on this screen, just let them pass. And just become an observer of your thoughts. If there are any thoughts that pull you, then just gently pull yourself back and become the observer of your thoughts. Now create and hold one thought: that I am a being of peace and positivity. And repeat this thought in your mind 3 times, each time slowing it down and experiencing it. I am a being of peace and positivity. And now just hold on to this feeling of peace and just begin to enjoy it. And just allow it to grow. This feeling of peace will create separation between the world on the outside and my world on the inside. And just experience the comfort in this feeling of peace. It is a peace that is unworldly, a peace that is deeply satisfying, a peace that brings an inner state of contentment, clarity, and centeredness. There may be situations in my life that I may be facing that are creating feelings of upheaval. But in order to deal with these situations, I must center into peace first. And when I recognize this connection between my thoughts, feelings, and energy, I can begin to take control of the way I think so that I can preserve my energy. In order to strengthen the mind, I have to recognize the quality of my thoughts and feelings. Whatever thoughts that I have towards a particular situation, let me become an observer of these thoughts and begin to see them dispassionately. When I can see them as an observer, I can begin to bring a different perspective. I can be less affected by them. One way that I can change my thoughts is to speak to myself and to speak to my mind in a very positive and uplifting way. In whatever situation that I face, let me first visualize that I've already succeeded in whatever I'm facing. This will actually raise my vibration higher than the situation. And when I create positive and high energy thoughts first, then actually the negativity in the situation will not affect me. So the creation of positive thoughts and being intentional about being positive is key to raising my vibration and creating high energy thoughts. So let us create some positive thoughts together. The first thought: I see myself being calm and composed as I go through my day, no matter what situations I face. Repeat this in your mind. I see myself being calm and composed as I go through my day, no matter what situations I face. As you repeat this in your mind slowly, just feel it and experience it. Let us pick another thought. Each situation that I face brings opportunities for me to learn and grow. Each situation that I face brings opportunities for me to learn and grow. Think it, feel it, and believe it. And just repeat the following in your mind. I choose being bigger than the situation. I feel bigger than the situation. And I am bigger than the situation. And now just visualize a situation in your life that is creating challenge and uncertainty. And just visualize it in a form. That form may be an image, It may be a symbol or a character, but just give it a form. And now with this situation as a form in front of you, see yourself growing bigger and see the form of the situation shrinking as you grow bigger. And as you grow larger than this situation, just experience yourself filling in strength. And recognize that no situation is bigger than you. And this transformation of thought will certainly help us turn situations in our mind from being bigger than us to being smaller than us. And this gives us an opportunity to affect them in a positive way. So let us just spend a few final moments in silence and just enjoy these moments of connection with each other. Om Shanti.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
And you know what's beautiful is what I see besides the, I'm sure everybody's feeling really centered and light and positive. But you know what's beautiful? You've been struggling with a little bit of the light from the light that's coming in from the window, right?
Yeah.
At the beginning of the meditation, your face was in the dark. Now you're in the light.
I've seen the light.
you are in the light, bro. All right, folks. So this, yes, I know we've quickly gotten into chatter and laughter, which is probably a good thing. I know that some of you are probably still lingering in your beautiful, mushy, safe, comfortable zone. But now's the time for you all to ask questions. And the way that I invite you to post your questions is in the chat window. So you'll send it to me as a host, and I will read it out so that everybody can hear it. And then Ash will get a chance to respond. So go ahead and send us your questions. And while you're doing that, I just want to say that, Ash, this meditation about just such a simple thing you said. When we go within and we cultivate that sense of who we are, the situations are always smaller than ourselves. That was so profound. I thought that if we can just even practice that mantra on a daily basis, right? Because a lot of times we kind of succumb to the fact that the situation, whatever it is, oh my God, it's overwhelming. How do I get out of this? How do I, deal with it? But then it's really a figment of your own imagination. You've basically given it the power to become so big. And I loved how you seized it, go into that little room behind your eyes, and then just tell yourself, I am greater than the situation. Profound. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to share that meditation with everyone. Yeah.
So
also just wanted to say, it's really wonderful how you've created this forum. It was lovely to have that conversation with you the other day, and I have to say you're an individual that I greatly respect, but I also find that I can speak to you more than I can speak to my mother. Even though we don't tend to connect as much frequently, but when we do connect, we seem to spend a long time talking. So I'm surprised we've actually contained ourselves to 37 minutes so far.
Yeah, right. So for the rest of you who are listening into this, so anytime Ash and I do connect, it's over an hour. And I tell you, this one particular time I want to share this is so funny. I was on a street in Vietnam, in the northern part, a place called Hai Yang in Vietnam. And I had gone to Vietnam, amongst other things, to kite surf. It's one of the best kite surfing locations in Asia. And I was waiting for my bus to go from North Vietnam to South Vietnam, where I was going to surf. And then I was in the midst of, okay, so that particular trip, I was renting gear, but I had to buy surf gear. And we got into this conversation on the street as I was waiting for my bus. Ash in the UK, me on the street in Vietnam. And it was an hour. We just can't, like you said, there's no way that we can ever drop the phone before it's an hour. And, I really appreciate you being available whenever I, pick up the phone and just randomly call you, doing whatever I'm doing. So
Pleasure.
that was one funny episode. So Joanna is asking a question. By the way, Joanna is one of those neighbors I was talking about. So Joanna walks her dog in Sausalito, and we haven't seen each other in 2.5 years. And it's so cool that I saw her and I recognized her, and I was wearing a mask, and she was like, she looked at me in my mask and she said, "Jay." that was so cool. And then subsequently, right. And I don't know how she did it, because I had a hat on and I had a mask on. All she had is probably 3 inches to work with. So good on you, Joanna. So
he's got one of these faces.
Sorry?
You've got one of those faces. Memorable.
Yeah. Thank you. So she's saying, this has been wonderful, guys. Thanks. I feel much more peaceful and grateful to share with others. So thank you, Joanna. Yes, I mean, that's the whole point. The point is that it all starts with us first cultivating it for ourselves, and then we become a resource, right? I mean, there's this age-old thing. I keep repeating this, and I think it's worthy of one more mention, that I always say, you can only pour what's in your cup. So what we're doing here is essentially, we are filling our cup at the beginning of the day, right? So then beginning of the day, middle of the day, if it doesn't work for you, I know some of you are mothers of little children, and they wake up even before you sometimes. So I understand it can be, but then the point is, you got to take the time. You got to make time to be able to fill your cup, whatever you want to call it, put the oxygen mask on first for yourself. But then that's when you're going to be able to serve. And that's going to come from a very different place. And you see, for those of you who are on American time, you still have a long part of the day ahead of you. You'll see. And those of you who are actually in the other part of the world, it's the end of the day for you. It's excellent, because your meditation is going to lead you into your sleep. And the sleep is going to become an extension of your meditation. And you'll notice when you wake up in the morning, how much more positive you'll start your day. And I have had friends who've already messaged me in the last series I was doing. They're saying that they can see the quality of their sleep has significantly improved. So I'm seeing some other comments here more than questions, I think. I see that Shanmugavel from India is saying, that's awesome interaction. Thank you for that. Do you guys want to ask any questions, or has Ash put us in that place of such deep tranquility and contentment that there is nothing? Okay, so we do have a question from Christina. So first of all, she starts off by saying, thank you so much for organizing all of these meetings to meditate. I really enjoyed this one in particular. I think Ash is a super positive person, and so are you. Thank you, Christina. Are these sessions going to be recorded and posted on YouTube? Because tomorrow I'll be teaching my class at this time and I will not be able to be here. Absolutely, Christina. So even as we are speaking right now, this is actually streaming live on YouTube, and I know there's several people probably joining there. So don't you worry. This is going to be posted right after these sessions. Typically, I take a little bit of time to edit it, and it takes a little time to process all of that. But rest assured that about a couple of hours after the end of these sessions, there will be a recording available for you to revisit this. And so if you miss any particular day, don't worry. It's all being recorded, and it's going to be available for you to share also with your friends. So I invite you to actually share this, like as you saw, there's so many positive comments. that I'm seeing that this has been very useful, a great interaction. And that's what it is, right? I mean, spirituality is not something that you need to do in a cave, in a monastery, up in the mountains in the Himalayas. It's about, being real, right? And as you can see, both of us, we both started our journey very early. I know Ash started his journey. How old were you, Ash, when you started meditating?
Interestingly, I was really young actually, probably about 5 or 6 when we started
Wow.
going to the center. But actually, I had to go and discover life for myself and ultimately find my own path, even though I didn't feel like I'd had a choice at that moment. And I've
Right.
been raised with spiritual principles and meditation as a way of life. I still had to venture out and process life for myself before I cemented myself on my own path.
Right. Yeah. Now you had a much better head start, a much earlier head start than I have. I started when I was 22 in school in university in Austin, and it's so funny because I grew up in India, up the spiritual mecca where people come, like whether it's the Rolling Stones or whether it's the Beatles or whether it's Bill Gates or um, the Apple founder Steve Jobs. They've traveled to India at some point or the other, or they've adopted, read books and had gurus and stuff like that. And I had to come to Austin, Texas, of all the places, to have my spiritual awakening. And there's always a time and place for things, like you said. We need to find when we are comfortable, when we feel ready for it. And
I think so as well, because I didn't necessarily value it. And I think, as you're saying, it's when you begin to mature, and I think everyone can relate to this, as you face the test papers of life, only then can you really begin to understand your own ego and where it is we need to nurture deeper positivity and change in our lives. So I feel the journey of life in itself is an invitation to be more spiritual, but it's one where we're learning and growing at the same time. So yeah, completely relate to what you're sharing. And I feel regardless of wherever you are, whether you've started your spiritual journey 2 years ago, there'll still be so much wisdom, because each soul has a tremendous capacity for wisdom that we have only forgotten.
yes, and that's the whole thing. And so each person's journey is going to be different, and the wisdom that you will find is not something that necessarily comes out of a book. It's there somewhere. That's why I always say that this is about a resonance. Resonance means that I already have a particular quality. I'm made of a certain metal or fabric, however you want to look at it, and then something from the outside makes me resonate, and I realize the potential I always had. It's not something I really got from the outside. So completely agree. So I'm seeing some comments. I'm going to see just real quick, couple of things. I would like to ask tips to stay constant and with discipline, meditating constantly. Some days I forget to do it or I get lazy. Do you have any quick tip on that, Ash?
I think routine is really important for meditation because, without that discipline of routine, we can't achieve that stability in stage. So that's really key. I mean, in the Brahma Kumaris across all of the centers at the moment, there's a real focus on increasing our meditation routine. So we find ourselves meditating at um, half hour slots in the day, and then, kind of an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening at the moment, just because there is such a need to send those vibrations out. But if we can't do half an hour, I would suggest, rather than quantity, quality is really key. And when you do the meditation, I think you mentioned, Jay, earlier on, if you start your day with a meditation, actually it is the best way to start your day because you're setting your mind onto something positive. And the Brahma Kumaris has so many resources online that are free. And there are many online meditations that you can connect with. And Jay, I'll send some to you that you can forward on to the group. But essentially, you can just play one of these commentaries. They're no more than 6 or 7 minutes. If it's the first thing you do in the morning, that you feed your mind pure and positive thoughts about the self, your day will change. We ran a positive thinking course recently, and that was the first practice of the week, which was, as soon as your eyes have opened, there were 3 affirmations that you had to say to yourself, and they were all positive affirmations. Because often we don't realize the mental commentary as soon as our eyes have literally opened in the morning, and we may feed ourselves with things like, I'm tired, or it's another day, you know, and the whole feeling is slightly sunken. Whereas when I start the day with positive thoughts, and then when you get out and then do a meditation commentary, actually the whole group that fed back to us after that positive thinking course, the first week, that particular practice made a significant impact on their day. So I feel if I forget meditation in the day, then just creating one simple routine at the start of the day is absolutely key. And it's not quantity, it's definitely quality time, and it's intentional.
So would you share with us what those three things are?
Oh, the three slogans.
Right.
Yeah, so one was I am a being of peace and strength. I have so that's the first one. So I am a being of peace and strength. I will face any situation with calmness and clarity. And the third one was related to the body. And the body is, and so I think it went something along the lines of, there is strength in every organ of this body, and this body is in good health. So we're creating intentional and positive feelings about our state. And those thoughts are very much like, I'm already that, rather than I will become that. So you can create any set of thoughts and just literally even have them on a bit of paper written down next to your bed. And the first thing you do as you wake up, just read that and allow your mind to ingest deeply powerful affirmations about the self.
That's fabulous. Fantastic. So there are more questions, but we are out of time. So folks, what I'd ask you to do is go ahead and please we have a chat group that's happening on WhatsApp. There's also the YouTube channel, which you'll see this video. Go ahead and post your questions. And so just in the interest of time, just in trying to respect, we said it's going to be 45 minutes, and I would like to keep it as close to that as possible. So you all heard Ash's 3 tips. Ash, do us a favor. Would you send it to me and I will post it with this video afterwards, those 3 tips that you shared, the first
Sure.
3 things in the morning that you want to have affirmations. So folks, thank you so much for joining. Ash, thank you for being here, bro. I mean, as always, I just enjoy chatting. We could go on and on about
Absolutely. I was just thinking that myself. Thank you for being such a great host, bro. And, my love to everyone. Good wishes for your safety and protection. And really do look after yourselves. And yeah, I really look forward to hearing more about this whole forum for the next 15 days. So thank you. Thank you very much, and take care. Yeah. And God bless.
Definitely. So a real quick thing. So tomorrow I have another amazing friend joining me, Dr. Jim Doty from Stanford Medical Center. He's the neurosurgeon and also the author of a best-selling book called Inside the Magic Box, Amazon bestseller. So he will be on same time tomorrow, same channel, and we will connect again. Until then, be well.